Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And it brings me great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Maria Ian in part 5 of what we know to be her most significant topic yet, which is women's transformation of life phases, AKA menopause. And let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Maria Ian. She is a results-oriented personal transformation coach, author, and public speaker. She comes from a family of medical doctors and has several decades of research in trauma recovery. In her legal career as a project manager for legal services providers for 15 years, she counseled on human rights, immigration, and national security. As an author, she focuses on medical science and legal and psychological thrillers. On her website, www.caveofthesun.com, you will find her in full writing gear at the age of 2 as she is self-taught. Dr. Ian has a PhD in political science, a JD in law, 6 professional certifications in health and fitness, 6 in TCM, and several in trauma counseling. Her research passion is the extraordinary, miraculous connection between spirit and energy beyond the science. Is that too abstract? No worries. We are all together on this path. Dr. Ian delights in the opportunity to provide a guiding light, and we welcome her to our platform here and now. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Enolia, for that beautiful introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. And what a powerful topic, something that every woman has to go through. We call it menopause, but what does that mean? Men. I always like to break down words. Men, pause, like we're pausing for the men for something. I don't know. I am so excited to have you on here. I want you to break this down for us and talk to us, and I'm turning it over to you.
All right. Well, menopause is probably the most misunderstood term in women's healthcare today. And there's just one thing I want to state up front, which is going to blow people's minds away. And it is 200% accurate, has been researched, is a scientific fact. All the symptoms that contemporary medical culture and contemporary culture associates with menopause, such as hot flashes, weight gain, increased cardiovascular risks, difficulty sleeping, anxiety, fears, none of them belong to the transformation of life stages from, let's say, the 40s into the 50s and 60s. So none of them are a necessity that women by nature are predisposed to experience because they are going through that transition. None of them, right? So, and the question is, well, why is it that when I do a Google search, let's say I'm in my 40s, mid 40s, upper 40s, early 50s, for some women it starts even at late 30s, but let's say you're in that age range and you're starting to feel anxious. You're starting to have, high blood pressure and feel hot at times.
Mm-hmm.
Starting to sweat. Like maybe at night, your sleep is not that deep sleep that you're used to. It's more like sort of a light and fuzzy, lightheaded kind of sensation. Maybe you even get, hot flashes at night. You have to run to the bathroom, sweating. Why is it that we experience those, first of all, but then when we go online to research what is happening to us, we put that in and we get back, like, first page of Google is going to hit you with menopause symptoms, which is just going to read back to you what I just said.
Right, exactly that. And
Right.
we're looking forward to this. So define menopause. Define it. Like, why are we getting back exactly what we already know?
Okay, right. So, first of all, again, as I said, and this is crucially important because many people, most people, they don't think like that. None of those experiences are necessary for us women to go through by way of our female nature in order to transform our lives to that particular life stage. None
Okay.
of them, right?
Okay.
And I just want women to wrap their head around it, no matter how outrageous it sounds like. Correct? Now, we experience those sensations. Some of them experience them earlier, maybe in their late 30s, right? And I know in my case, it started in my late 30s. However, all that menopause means medically, scientifically, throughout the ages is end of menstrual period. That's all it is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
our menstrual periods have a beginning and they have an end, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and that is all there is to that. It's
Okay.
like, and and it's like when you go through puberty, you start menstruating, and then at some point that ends. Now, what happens is in our culture, contemporary culture, is a very big problem, which is North American and Western European,
Mm-hmm.
because we label, right? We start to label.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So we say, okay, you got those sensations. It is menopause, right? You you are getting older, right? That whole term age is used, getting older is used. All those symptoms are labeled, right, as menopause, and you are labeled as an aging menopausal woman. Now, that may be done for with good intentions because you're practicing medicine and you need to tell the patient something, right? And you
Right.
need to fit what you're telling the patient into whatever the medical profession is practicing nowadays, right? But my argument is we have taken that labeling to an extreme where it really does not correspond any longer to anything, right? So let's go back to just the medical, just the basic science, right? Forgetting about all of the labeling. Let's say we are somewhere on another planet, we're just women, we don't know anything about any culture, any society, we're just biological females, right?
Right.
So what's gonna right so what's gonna happen is our menstrual period is going to come to an end, and our bodies are transforming as they transform throughout life ever since conception. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we are constantly transforming, right? So once the menstrual period comes to an end, there is a transformation occurring, and I speak more about that in my book. I'm sorry, so
Okay.
this end here, my book,
Yes.
Miracle of Aging, where some bodily systems shut down, right? So the hormonal production obviously terminates, and others step step in, others start, right? Now, what starts is there are actually many women who report that they have heightened cognitive functions. They are feeling
Mhm.
more spiritual. They are
Yeah.
feeling more creative. They're feeling right. And why
Mhm.
is that? Well, that's because one physical, like one system shut down, another started, which it's so normal and it's so natural. You couldn't really overstate it.
I want to pause you here because nobody ever talks about this, Dr. Ian. Nobody
Mhm.
ever talks about this. The close of the fertility
Yeah.
cycle is the birth of heightened characteristics within us due to
Yes.
our age, and we never talk about the heightened awareness or intuitiveness or anything like that. We only talk about the negative aspects of this, and I'm loving this. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Correct.
Go ahead.
Correct. so the only reason why um I know about this scientifically is because I mean, I observed this heightened cognitive functioning and heightened spirituality, creativity in many women around me, in my family and other women who were close to me.
Right.
And so I observed that, but again, as we just said, contemporary medical culture doesn't address that in that sense, right? And I had to do so much research, so much research to actually find a medical doctor who said it is actually scientifically proven that it's normal for women to have this experience.
So
So it's
talk
not
about it from a medical
mainstream
standpoint
science.
of view, but before you
But,
move on, like what exactly is changing that is actually heightened in us physically, transitioning into this new stage of life?
well, see, you see that, yes, that depends on every woman individually.
Okay.
If you want to get down to the very details, because I don't want to use very complex language because it's going to detract too much from what everything else I want to say, but that is, discussed in my book. That's on Miracle of Aging, um,
Okay.
and longevity. So people can pick that up and they can look through it in half an hour. They're going to find all the terms they're looking for. But what changes is not all that different from what changes throughout our lives constantly, every moment of every day, because our cells constantly regenerate. Our cells constantly regenerate. Some of them die off, some of them fix themselves, some of them do better than others. We are a microcosm of the larger macrocosm of constant cellular work and constant cellular regeneration and transformation,
Correct.
right? And so when our menstrual period stops, then our heightened awareness, creativity, our xi starts flowing. Our xi is a technical term for life force. Our
Mhm.
xi starts flowing in different pathways, which is a completely normal thing to happen. So
Right.
we don't question whenever we get a flu, or we don't feel too well, or we have maybe our lifestyle changes, or we start to think about things in a different way. We don't constantly question, oh, I'm going through a transformation, what is it? Oh my God, maybe it's the end of my life, or maybe I'm going old, or maybe something is wrong with you. We never question that. But the reason why we question the transformation with menopause is because of the labeling, that happens, where women are labeled like that. And you said something at the beginning that's very interesting. You said men or pause. Well, you know, if you're labeling someone as getting old, as losing a part of herself, as maybe being, and this is all things, experiences that I have researched and encounter that come with women who in today's culture go through to that experience, where they're sad, they're angry, they're anxious, they have lost, like this thing, I've lost a part of myself, I'm never getting it back,
Right.
right? Right, and that is, by the way, is completely inaccurate. That's just programmed. The woman who says that has been programmed to think like that, because feeling that we've lost a part of ourselves, that can happen when maybe you have the flu. That can happen if you break a leg. That can happen when you lose a family member. That's not something specific to menopause, where now you have to feel like you've lost a part of yourself, right? But if you label women like that, what you do is you sort of take them out of the labor force. You degrade the significant life experience and professional experience they have, right? So it's an economic system behind all of this, where now you can say, okay, you've been professionally active for 30 years, you've got a lot of experience, you've got life experience, you've got professional experience, you got, a lot of qualities that you've developed, but now you cannot use those qualities, so you're not going to make $100,000 a year that you would make if we would consider all of that in your professional resume,
Right.
because now you're sad, now you're angry, you're anxious, you're frustrated, and all of those things, right? So there is my opinion, conclusion is there is an economic system behind this labeling. And also, of course, if you want to get really nasty, but you want to get really honest and nasty, well, if you're a man and you've been married to your wife for 30 years and you no longer like her for whatever reason, and you don't really want to address her existence, what better way is there to get rid of her than to say, hey, I want a younger so-called, I'm just being very honest because these things happen,
Well,
right?
I'm
Um,
gonna actually, I'm gonna pause you there because not that I disagree with what you're saying at all.
mhm, mhm.
Okay. One of the things that we need to acknowledge is that this world, very, very few cultures across the world respect the age, respect the elderhood, respect the phase of life that comes
Yes.
after the end of fertility. Okay. Because at
See,
the end,
but Enolia, you said end of fertility, but that's not fertility. You're defining fertility in a very material sense as of creation of babies. And that's material, right? But you can
right.
have a spiritual child when you're 100 years old, and
Oh,
that creates
absolutely. And I don't disagree
right,
with you, but
the same.
majority of the people that we are
Okay,
talking to are
all right.
thinking on the material basis, Dr.
Okay, all right.
They
Okay, I
do
get it.
not embrace the spirit because we wouldn't be having this out a conversation if they did, right? We wouldn't be having this
Right, correct.
conversation.
Yeah,
These labels are
yeah,
indicative of a mindset, and that mindset comes with so many stigmas to it. And the stigma of how
yeah,
we view age, the stigma of how we perceive elderhood and fighting and kicking and screaming because we don't want to go through it. So much so
yeah.
that I think that part of the symptoms that we experience can be a balance that's lacking, but it also, like for me, when I went through that phase of life and when I
Mhm,
went through menopause, okay,
mhm,
for lack of better
mhm.
terms, and I started experiencing the symptoms, all I had to do was change my diet, and I didn't
Yes,
experience
correct,
the symptoms anymore.
correct, correct. So we're
I
going to get exactly to that. Exactly. Yes, correct. You're
All I
200.
had to do was change the things that because
Yes.
the body wants to stay in balance. And the body is
Mhm.
like, okay, this is what I crave more. I don't want this anymore. So
Yes,
make the shift.
you got it.
Okay,
That's how
not a
that's it.
problem.
Yeah,
And I
there you
looked
go.
up hot sweats and I looked up what foods would basically bring that back into balance. And then I didn't
Exactly.
have them anymore. I looked up a couple of
Exactly.
systems and
Exactly.
exactly. And we think that it has to be a chemical change, but it doesn't because the body is made to heal itself. But
Yes.
the way that the labels and the stigmas and the
Mhm,
mindset that kicks into
mhm,
this topic here
mhm.
is so definitive
Yes. Yes.
that
Exactly.
this is what we take ourselves through. And we
Yes, exactly.
absolutely dread it. We dread wanting to go into this space.
Exactly. So there are two things there that I want to say. Just what you're saying is 200% accurate, which is then why do we experience those symptoms, right? If they're not menopausal
Right.
symptoms.
Right.
Right. So one is we all have heard about psychosomatic symptoms, right? And that can then also become actual physical ailments if they're really, emphasized and trenched and enforced. Now, I can say from my experience and what I've read, seen, and encountered that the extent to which women today are labeled and hit over the head with this idea of age and with this idea of having lost something,
Mhm.
not being your former self, is so extreme, and I'm not exaggerating, it is extreme both by the medical profession as well as by society, as compared to other cultures I have experienced where there may be some labeling, but it's not as extreme, right?
Mm-mm.
I'm talking, no, that it is going to make you feel that way. And let's say you're somebody who maybe throughout life you were born, you're maybe somebody who gains weight easier just because of the way your metabolism is. That's how you've been all your life.
Right.
You gained weight easier, not a big deal, right? And probably you lost it again. But now you're finding yourself, you gained a little bit of weight. Oh my God, I'm menopausal. How horrible. And what some women do is, oh, defensive. No, I'm horrible. I'm old. This is happening to me. It's a disaster. Some women may eat more because they feel defensive. And then obviously, if you already are somebody who gains weight easier, if you're going to eat more because you're feeling defensive and you want to protect yourself, you're going to gain even more weight. And then you're
Yeah.
going to say, oh, there you go. I am menopausal. How
Yeah.
right I am. The same thing with anxiety. Some people just are more anxious. Some people are just not as well equipped to deal with stress. And they're going to read all these horror stories, and their doctor is going to tell them horror stories, and they're going to read absolute horror stories online. They're going to go on Facebook. They're going to read horror stories in various groups where women go through these anxieties, in the middle of the night, getting up and having to run to the bathroom or the world is over, right? But you already, through life, you already were an anxious person. That's how you are. And it's fine to be an anxious person because maybe you're more sensitive. It's not a big deal. But now, oh yes, this is how bad it is. Oh my God, they are right. You see? So that's one aspect. That's where the labeling, the psychosomatic
Yes, it
things
is.
get actually transformed into actual physical symptoms because
Yes.
you just hit yourself over the head, right? Now, the second thing is, as you mentioned about diet,
Mm-hmm.
our diet in this, again, North American, Western European, is just, let's face it, extremely bad, right?
Yes.
We have
Very much
toxins.
so.
Yeah, we have many toxins in our food. We have food that actually we consume that can change our mental functioning, that can give us brain
Processed
fog,
food. It's not even
process.
food.
Yes, exactly. And all of that affects, basically, breaking it down to the very basics, two things. One is our blood flow, the strength and quality of our blood. And
Mhm.
going with that is our Xi, our life force, right?
Right.
And both of these, they need to be continuously balancing each other out, working together, and continuously progressing throughout our life cycle. Now, if we have, consumed very bad foods since infancy, right? And we have been causing ourselves many, and this is just what it is, and it may sound scary, but it's the truth, causing ourselves in the process, blood stagnation,
Mm-hmm.
Qi stagnation, deficiencies in how Qi works, deficiencies in our blood that a regular blood test may not pick up, because it's not only what is the ingredients in our blood, it's also the dynamic, how
Right.
it flows, works,
Right.
right? Those things are going to accumulate throughout life, and then those symptoms are going to start, and they're going to make the change in estrogen much worse, because it's like if you have a broken leg and then instead of curing it, you start running, or you start saying, oh no, I need to do something, crazy, I need to whatever. It's the same thing, it's the same
Mm-hmm.
logic,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you're going to have, and what those symptoms are, they are general symptoms that you are not well. Your body is not healing itself, it's not working. You've been on this planet for 30 plus years, and now things are starting to break apart, because we were not made to live this deficient dietary existence. We
Right.
need certain foods. Our bodies are created to need certain foods, that because of the energetic frequencies of the foods, that if we don't have those, we are going to break down. And regretfully, this contemporary culture does not provide us with those energetic frequency foods that we need to maintain ourselves.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Even if, let's say, the food is 200% organic and whatnot, it may still not provide you with that energetic frequency, because there's a very specific analysis you got to do. So we start to break down. We experience, and hot flashes and anxiety are also, weight gain, are very typical of blood deficiencies in TCM, hot
Mm-hmm.
flashes being the main one. It's a blood deficiency, blood stagnation, toxins build up, experience that is going to happen to your blood. So, as you mentioned, the one thing you got to do immediately is change your diet, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Completely and
Make sure
immediately.
that there's food in your food, period. Let alone the fact that we need to take pause and actually look at our food in the manner by which you spoke about, because what happens is that people don't look at their chi. They
Mm,
don't look at that. So therefore,
no,
they're not saying, okay, what am I eating that is going to energetically balance what I
yes,
want to produce and how I
got
want
it.
my mind sharp, my spirit high, my energy high. We're not looking at that, right?
You got it.
And we
You
know
got
that
it.
a more plant-based type diet is
Yes.
to provide that. So
Plants are extremely important.
understanding
Yes.
that
Hmm.
the plant-based diet is going to do that, and we're eating processed food all the time because we don't want to cook, because we don't want to take the time to take pause and notice our food, okay, because oh, I've always liked this and it has sugar in it and I just like sugar, so I guess I'm just going to forget about it because I love what I have. And when we make those decisions, Dr. Ian, when we decide that I have to have it, I've always had it, we're really just signing our death certificate to say, okay, it
You're
doesn't
very,
bother
yes,
me how my body breaks down and reacts to it because I always like it. And then that's when the body addictions win over the mind
yes,
by which it's
yes,
supposed to be following. And
yes.
mind then just follows what the body decides it wants. And it's in balance. So it wants all over the spectrum
Hmm. Hmm.
and
Yeah.
it just breaks down.
Yes. Well, you probably heard the word comfort food.
Oh, yeah.
There's certain foods and that have certain ingredients that just shut down, dampen our cognitive functioning, and work with that chronic stress, anxiety that we're in to make us feel safe. You see, and those are the worst foods, and there are many of them if you go to any supermarket, because they give you this sensation that oh, it's okay. It's okay. Well, it may be whatever in the theoretical abstract, it may be horrible food, but I feel so good. I've been in environments where you actually have, women eating that, and that are in high stress situations, and then they sit there with that kind of food and they eat, and you can see from how they have everything set up that it's a
Yeah.
protection mechanism, a comfort, a safety. I have this food, these sauces, the sauces are horrible, that I can sort of, that gives me something, that fills me up, that provides me with care. And that's the most horrible thing, because obviously nobody else provides me with care. That's why I need this, and I'm
Right.
not at all tuned. I'm not at all functioning energetically with anything. My energy is not in tune with anything, right? But
Right.
I have this, right? And it's regretful that, but there's one more thing that I would like to address, which is, well, don't people change in appearance? So don't you look different when you're 20 than when you're 50 or 60? Bingo, that's a counter argument, right?
Right.
Everything you said is wrong, because any idiot can say, well, okay, when you were 20 you look one thing, when you're
Yes.
okay, yeah, all right. So time and space, right? Our discussion, we are talking at the level of energetic frequencies.
Yes.
A person who follows that practice and who is attuned to that and follows it rigorously the way it's meant to be followed, and I do that, will not notice, and again, this may sound outrageous, but I don't really care because it's true, will not notice much of a difference between the functioning of a woman, because we're talking about women, a woman who is 100 years old and one who is 20 years old. Because I was always astonished and captivated by the energy and the flexibility that my grandmother exhibited in her interactions with people. And I wanted to be her age. I said, oh, I'm going to be like that too when I'm 80 or 90. Because I thought, me thinking, I thought that, at that age, women just reach that very flexible, insightful, and
Yes.
dynamic level, because again, I wasn't raised in this particular labeling culture. Um, so we are operating from that energetic frequency harmony perspective, we are just not going to see any difference between 20-year-old and a 100-year-old. Now, why do we see that difference? Because of space and time. right? Emotions are experienced within time, and I'm talking about the not favorable emotions,
Mhm.
right? They're experienced within time, and they occupy space. That space at some point can turn into a tumor if
Right.
there is enough of that bad emotional energy there, right?
Right.
So when we observe somebody as old, such as wrinkled, slow, sagging, drooping, whatnot you want to call them, we are looking at them from that very low level of space and time, where
Yeah.
everything is cluttered, stagnated, you know, bursting full with those emotions that come from blood and sea stagnation. Because TCM has studied for thousands of years, blood deficiencies, anger, and sadness are very typical of blood deficiencies, particularly like this chronic anger, this
Yeah.
anxiety kind of this sadness of it's not going, I'm just there, it's not going, I have to proceed. Those are very typical of the biological dietary blood deficiencies, toxins build up, no sea flowing, blood isn't healthy, right?
Right.
So that's what we get at. We get to that very low level where we see people from that time and space, stuck in time and space,
Mhm.
right? Where they look in a certain way. And now if somebody is really interested and wants to really do this exercise, they can, well, they sort of should take my class on how to get there, because if you want to do it yourself, you may get very
Yes.
you may spend a lot of effort figuring things out by yourself, but you can just cut all of that off, all of those emotions and those angers, and get out of that time and space that those stagnations, deficiencies created for you, and raise yourself to your center of higher awareness, and then look at some woman in your family and see if she still looks old.
And
If
so
the
all
answer is
you're basically telling the audience is to shift the labels and shift the viewpoint. Because
yes.
I'll tell you, I'm considered a grandmother elder, and it's
Oh,
hilarious.
I always thought you're like 20. Whenever I speak to you, I see, wow, wow, I
And
whether
I'm
you're
proud to say that I just hit my
big.
60th birthday this year. And
Oh my
so
God. Doesn't
as
matter. It's a number. Yeah.
yes, yes. And it was funny because to be initiated, and I remember talking to my grandmother elder, grandmother Isabel Mawasaki, and she was like, my girl, I know you want to become a grandmother, but you have to go
Mm,
through menopause and you have to have gray hair. And it's like, grandmother, I'm in my 50s. What do you mean I have to go through menopause? I went through menopause in my late 40s. And by the
mm,
way, the only reason you don't see the gray hair was because at the time I was dyeing my hair. So I stopped dyeing my hair so she could see the gray hair. But I'm like,
uh-huh,
no, 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 no,
mhm,
no. I'm there already. And what I loved about this is that
mm.
I couldn't wait to be that elder. I couldn't wait
Yeah,
to
that's
step
mm,
into that initiation and stand in that truth of saying, I'm an elder. I went through menopause. I have my gray hair. I wear it proudly. And like, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready to be considered and given the respect of that, which is a person who has lived through life, a certain realm, a certain amount of
mm,
decades, and
mhm.
treated as such, you know? Yeah.
Well, see, I agree with all of that. I just don't agree with the label of menopause, because what you went through an inner transformation. Your life stages transformed, where you didn't really go through menopause. Your energetic functioning transformed, as it does all through your life.
And she was basically saying to me, until I went through that transformation, don't talk to her. And I'm like, but I did,
Wow. Don't talk to her. Okay. Woo.
no, because I wanted to be that grandmother elder. I wanted to, and it's
Yeah.
just, well, we won't even consider you until you've done this. And it's like, but I did do this,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So just to round this up, um, again, if you're experiencing those symptoms that are menopause menopausal symptoms, there's nothing wrong with you. Okay?
No.
There's nothing wrong with you. You need, well, first of all, dietary changes, but you need to train yourself in a specified, energetic frequency lifestyle, which is very easy because it's like you learn about anatomy in medical school. You're just learning a different kind of anatomy. You're learning your energetic pathways and how those work, and to look at your life as a complete entity through which you transform, where you change your experiences, where you start to see things differently. And it is all a natural process that is completely unrelated to aging, has nothing to do with aging, is a fake term. It's a completely fake term. And once, if you're interested, if you want to raise your conscious awareness to a much higher level, you're going to, I don't want to say agree with me, because I'm not the one who came up with this theory. It's been around for thousands of years, but you're going to agree with what we've been saying here. That aging is anybody who tells you your age, you're old and you need to slow down, that person wants to harm you big time. Any medical doctor who tells you you're getting old, slow down, take it easy, they're doing you the biggest disfavor ever. If you want to know more about that, then please schedule a call with me. I can enlighten you. But what that medical doctor is telling you is, he's telling you the exact opposite of what
Of what you
somebody
need
would
to
tell
do.
you. Yes, of what you need to do. Yeah.
Eat real,
Yeah.
move more. Eat real
Move
food,
more.
move more. Yes.
Yeah, and again, we don't want to, like, we can talk about this for hours.
Yes.
And I don't want to scare people, but there are some women who get into bodybuilding in their 60s, and they, again, this is not something that's discussed, this is not something that's publicized, but today I do 70 air squats in the morning, plus 70 air squats, without interruption, plus other ones that change with push-ups. So altogether, every morning I do over 150, well over 150 air squats, as well as well over 100 push-ups.
Right.
When I was in my 40s, I could not do 5 push-ups.
Wow.
I could do 5. Yeah. So it's all complete BS what you're
Yes.
being told, you
Yes.
know, and you just owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself to listen to your creation, listen to who you were created as, listen to what the universe wants you to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So tell our audience where they can actually reach out to you at the actual website and
Yes.
information.
Yes. So if you want to speak more about this topic of aging and menopause, on my website, which is www.caveofthesun.com, there is a contact me form. So I can be reached through that. Email is info@caveofthesun.com. And also I'm on LinkedIn, social media. Yeah, LinkedIn is the other venue. Um, but again, please do not let anyone ever predefine who you are. Because as I hope we made clear a little in this conversation, people who do that, and they may look like they really want to help you, what they're really doing is they're causing you a lot of harm. And you may think in the moment, oh no, I'm being helped because somebody cares for me. And you will need a couple of years to discover, well, that wasn't true. And after those couple of years, it may be very late for you. You may have, argued yourself into a corner where you're going to need some very drastic measures to self-heal. And because of how medical science is, you may not be able to take those drastic measures. I'm just being very honest, because that's why we got cancers and all these vascular dysfunctions and like all these diseases that we have, is because
Right.
people painted themselves into a corner, and when they noticed, it was too late,
Great. Yes.
right? And that's the really tragic part that we don't want anybody, so take this take the step now. If you want to educate yourself, please do reach out.
Thank you so, so much. This has been another episode of The Infinite Way with Dr. Maria Ian, and I would highly recommend that you get in contact with her again at Cave of the Sun on her website. And we want to just thank you for being here and sharing your expertise as always. And what a pleasure it is to have you here always. Thank you so, so much.
Well, thank you. And oh yeah, I love your program, and it's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And take care. We'll see you next time on The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity.